evening, THS members and guests. And thank you for being in my hometown. By the war years of the 1940s, Pittsburgh was firmly established as both the arsenal of democracy, providing plenty of steel and machinery for the war effort, and the Smoky City, with smog so thick the streetlights would burn during the day. Beginning in the late 1940s, the city, led by Mayor David L. Lawrence, entered what has become known as Renaissance One. Major initiatives aim to improve air quality and clean up the rivers, led to urban revitalization efforts which, in some instances, saw the destruction of historic properties and entire neighborhoods. While many of these programs held the best intentions at heart, 50-plus years later, we realized that not every initiative was right for the Steel City. By 1961, Arthur P. Ziegler had already received his undergraduate and master's degrees from the University of Pittsburgh, continued his education at Union Theological Seminary in New York, and the Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio, and returned home to Pittsburgh. In 1964, he co-founded the Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation to combat urban renewal policies that devastated sections of Pittsburgh, both literally and culturally. 40 years later, Mr. Ziegler continues to promote and utilize historic preservation as an effective means to create sustainable, affordable housing, healthy neighborhoods, and economic development. His work has been as much about social justice for disenfranchised populations as it has been about preserving the important places. Mr. Ziegler's preservation efforts created Pittsburgh's famous Station Square, which many of us saw during the week. It fostered a positive attitude toward preservation in Pittsburgh that stabilized many of its historic neighborhoods. He created an environment in which the restoration of the Lowe's Bend Theater as Heinz Hall, the Stanley Theater as the Benedum Center, and the Gaiety, later Fulton Theater, as the Volume Theater. They were made not only possible, but inevitable. Arthur Ziegler has authored 10 books on historic preservation and is the recipient of the National Trust for Historic Preservation's Louise E. DuPont Crown and Shield Award, the President of the United States Private Sector Achievement Award, and the Preservation Pennsylvania Otto Haas Award. Arthur is also the WQED Pittsburgher of the Year and Southside Chamber of Commerce Man of the Year. He is currently the president of the Pittsburgh History and Landmarks Foundation and its subsidiaries, Landmarks Financial, Landmarks Development, and Landmarks Community Capital Corporation. As a native Pittsburgher myself, it gives me tremendous pride to present the 2014 Theater Historical Honorary Member of the Year Award to Mr. Arthur P. Ziegler.
I only sent you 4 lines to read. I don't know where you got all the rest of that, but don't believe everything you hear. I'm amazed at the turnout. I thought Saturday evening at the William Penn, maybe 10 or 20 people. This is just phenomenal. You've been here a week looking at all of our theaters, all those that remain, and even a couple of new ones down in the cultural district, I think. And we are very pleased and honored that you've done that. We've been at it a long time, as you heard, and we lost a lot along the way. When I heard about this, I couldn't help but think about a little transmission between George Bernard Shaw and Winston Churchill. They weren't too fond of one another, but it reminded me of how fast theaters disappeared. George Bernard Shaw sent a note to Winston Churchill, said, I have a new play opening, and I'm sending you 2 tickets for opening night. I hope you'll come, and bring a friend if you have one. And Winston Churchill wrote back and said, can't attend the first night, will attend the second if there is one. I felt that way about theaters. Will there be one tomorrow? We lost the Harris, we lost the Warner, we lost 2 Nixons, And I went, I happened to go over to Ohio a good bit, went to the main street in Youngstown. The theater was gone, the great theater. One is still left. But we now have a lot to treasure here. You've been visiting them, and they aren't just downtown, although they're the centerpiece of downtown. They've helped attract people back downtown. But you've been out, I think, to Zelienople and the Uniontown and Greensburg and a dozen others, and even places like McKee's Rocks to the Roxian, which is struggling to come back. We're all working together on these theaters. And even a little town like Charleroi or Dormont with the I think you were out at the Hollywood, weren't you? And the Dennis? Did you go to the Dennis? A little bit of early modern. The Hollywood was my theater when I was a kid, and they refaced it about 3 times, each time worse. Our organization has been involved in the cultural district theaters, as you heard, the historic ones, and in one that you visited today, the New Granada. We raised $1.1 million to try to stabilize that building so it wouldn't fall down. It is the seat, the home of African American culture in this town, and it should certainly be revived, and I'm glad that you, I think we even got inside today, didn't we? Very good. Well, if you had come 3 years ago, we could not have let you inside because you've got down through the floor. But that is stable today. I don't think you got to Butler, PA, but there is an Art Deco theater, Carrara glass front. The main street is a National Register district. We do a lot of work up there. We raised money for several years. And we loaned the Redevelopment Authority $150,000. What a switch. It used to be we would spend $150,000 to defeat a redevelopment authority. They borrowed it to save the theater. And last week, we raised about $40,000 to start work on the marquee. And that was a tax credit project, and in the meantime, Mr. Turovich in the state legislature has introduced a bill to abandon for 2 years all tax credit projects. You gain some, you lose some. Second night, if there is one. I've been associated with theaters for a long time, as Craig knows, and was part of the team that put together Playhouse Square in Cleveland and Theater Square in Louisville, and have been very pleased with how these, like our Cultural Trust, have brought back downtowns. I do want to remind you that there are more than enclosed theaters, and I think maybe the person who has performed more in more historic theaters in America, indoors and outdoors, because we have historic theaters outdoors, is Garrison Keillor. Prairie Home Companion, which probably ended, just about 2 hours ago, up at Tanglewood, a more modern but important outdoor theater. He remembers Ocean Grove, Tabernacle, goes there, the great auditorium at Chautauqua, and goes there, the Hollywood Bowl, and goes there, and let us not, as a society, neglect those as well. I also remember what Garrison Keillor said about the people who go to church in Lake Wobegon. They say every sermon has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And they like the beginning and the end to be as close together as possible. Thank you.